Welcome back, everybody, to the USUK Podcast Network YouTube channel. Here we have our interview with Lisa Clemens. Lisa is a screenwriter. She is a screenwriter of the movie Delirium, and also she wrote a book called Dead Wake, which she talks all about in this interview. Lisa's got some amazing projects coming up. Here to talk about her relationships with two specific gentlemen who have really helped create this powerful triangle of a team. This woman is so much fun to talk to, and she's got so much stuff coming up, and I can't wait to see what the world brings to her once this COVID, backs off. Anyway, enjoy, sit down, and watch the Chronicles of Lisa Clemens.
There she is.
This way.
Big ball of fluff.
Look over here. Look here. There she is. Like, where? She's a very confused Australian shepherd right now.
Oh, bless her. She's lush. Thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
I'm happy to be here. I'm kind of like, when Helen said you were looking to talk to me, I'm like, me? Who am I?
Because we're trying to go out of the norm. We don't want to go for, like people always go, oh, I'd love to get, I don't know, Delia Smith or something. You know what I mean? Like they shoot for the stars or something. But we like to talk to people who are interesting and do things like almost behind the scenes in a way. So, because you might have some phenomenal... Helen told me you've got some great stories and stuff. I was like, that's good. We like to, think outside the box.
Cool. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So, all it goes, Jamie will do a quick introduction, and then we're just going to bombard you with loads of questions.
All right.
Simple as that, really, yeah.
Sure.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, we all love a good movie, right? But the best thing about a movie, it isn't the acting or the special effects, it's the story they're trying to tell. And today's guest does just that. Today we have another shining example of how never giving up and following your dreams can lead to success. So welcome to the show, screenwriter of 2008 Delirium, Lisa Clemens.
Oh, thank you.
Hey. So first and foremost, Lisa, how's your year been?
It's actually not been bad. I had a lot of time to be creative. And I do work a day job because, screenwriting isn't as lucrative as everybody would like to think it is, unless you're a big name and you've got people pounding on your door. So I do have a job at a school, which I'm considered an essential worker there. So they've kept me employed, which is good.
Oh, that's fantastic news. So what is it you do at the school, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, I work at a custodial office.
What's that?
Custodial office?
I don't think I've heard of that.
Yeah, just that's cleaning schools and such.
Oh, okay. Awesome. That's good. I suppose it's good because obviously I've been furloughed since March and I'm ready to just do it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's brutal seeing these same four walls every time.
Oh boy, a neighbor of mine started a business where she was a hairstylist, and of course she was out of work for the longest time, and that was pretty bad.
Oh, bless her.
Yeah.
That sucks.
So, Lisa, take us back to the start. Where did this love for writing and screenwriting come from?
Well, it's funny. I never intended to be a screenwriter. I started out writing for a magazine based out of the UK called Screen Power. And it was based on Jackie Chan and Hong Kong movies. And one of my first interviews was with Andy Cheng, who was Jackie Chan's stunt double. And so I interviewed him back in 2004. And we remained friends. And then suddenly in like 2008 or 2009, he said, I know you're right, but have you ever done anything with screenwriting? And I'm like, honestly, I had. I've done some fiction, and I've tried to turn some of my fiction into screenplays. But where I live, it's kind of rural New York. Who do I have to pitch to? So I said, yeah, I'll give it a go. And he sent me the script that he wanted to have rewritten. And he's like, try this, see what you can do with it. Do whatever you want, just keep the plot kind of the same. So I did that and mailed it back to him and hadn't heard anything from him for a while. So I was like, oh, well, that was the end of that. But he got on Skype with me and I was like, hey, about that screenplay I wrote. And he's like, oh, yeah. Really good. And so I was like, okay, so, if you have something else like that, it'd be fun to do it. He's like, no, you're my partner. I'm like, excuse me? Yes, what? So he wanted somebody to, go over some of his screenplays and work with him and write with. He really, has mentored me. And so back in 2008, that was how it started. And then sometime around, I think it was 2011, he was golfing with Johnny Martin, who was also a stunt guy, but who started doing some directing and producing. And he had an idea. They're golfing together, and he tells Andy, I had this idea that when he was a kid, he used to go to this mansion in Oakland, and it was called the Hellman something estate. And it was a really scary looking mansion. They used it in burnt offerings at that famous house. And he used to dare his friends to go up to this, the porch of this house. And none of his friends could do it in the middle of the night. You know, the walk to this place is like a mile through this woods, and you know, just that alone was scary. So he's like, I want to do something with that. I want to make a movie, like a found footage. And he's like, yeah, I got a screenwriter. So Johnny didn't know me. So he's like, no, I want you two to work on the first draft until I know what she's doing. And eventually he saw that he liked what I was doing, and I got what he wanted. And so Andy was able to step back, and I kind of took over the writing of Delirium. And so yeah, that movie started way back in 2011. They filmed it in 2013, and had to go back for rewrites because they decided to make it not a found footage. And eventually it was put out in 2018. But and then from there on, Johnny would suggest me to other writers. He's kept me on as a writer for more things that he wants to get done. So that's kind of how it started. I owe it all to Andy Cheng.
Wow, that is absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
So you did you just fall into the horror scene then? Is it basically like, this is what I want to do? Or has it always been a love of yours?
No, I mean, I like some horror movies, but honestly, that's not really what we were planning on writing. I've written more things with Johnny that are thrillers, dramas. It just happens to be that one was the one that we made first. And then, excuse me. I also wrote a spec script. Johnny Martin called me up and said he was working on Men of Courage, with Nick Cage. And he's on this battleship, and he goes, hey, Lisa, I'm on this thing, and I see that they allow camping here. Like, little kids can camp, scout groups can camp. What if a battleship was haunted? Now, don't write it so that little kids get killed, but, older scouts. He's like, don't do like Girl Scouts and little Boy Scouts, but what if it was like a teenage or young adult scouting group on this battleship and it's haunted? So I took that idea, ran with it, and I wrote Deadwake, which did really well in some contests. And one of the contests had it so that you could have it published as a prize. So it's now published and available on Amazon.
Oh, sweet. What's that called? Deadwake?
Deadwake, yes.
Okay, I'll have to check that out. That's awesome.
Yeah, there's also a book called Deadwake, so you have to look up screenplay Lisa Clemens Deadwake.
Okay, yeah, consider that a done deal. So before all of this then, what did you really, what was your dream? What was your aspiration to be before you fell into writing for magazines?
I used to work with animals a lot, and nice. I was a vet tech for a while. My childhood dream was to work for like SeaWorld.
Oh, no way.
Seriously, I wanted to go swim with the whales, or I wanted to be the next Joan Embry. I don't know if you know, back in the 70s, she would be on Johnny Carson's show showing off the animals. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to work with animals.
That's amazing.
And then I got married, and now I got 2 little animals.
So you touched on Delirium. So let's talk about, for those that don't know about the film, tell us what's it about.
Okay, like I said, it was based on what Johnny Martin used to do with his friends. He really did have a group of friends called the Hell Gang, and they would do all these pranks and such. And so one of the things they liked to do was go jump the fence into this museum, which was the Hellman estate. And he'd put a coin during the day, like a gold coin or something, up on the porch, and dare his friends to go get it. And they never could. So the idea was kind of born from that. So what we did originally was, it was going to be a found footage. And so we had this idea that these kids were, like, they wanted to be YouTube stars. And so they'd send the kid up with a camera mounted on his chest, and tell them, you got to go up to this. If you want to join our hell gang, we're only 13, but if we might let a 14th in, if you can do this challenge. You get up to the porch, show us the door, show us you're up at the porch, and we'll let you into our gang. And so this one kid goes and tries it, comes back, and the original version he came back, but they've edited it since that he just disappears. So the camera's gone, he's gone, and they decide to go look for him. And so they of course, since he's didn't come back, they have to go through the woods, and so the whole thing starts with them going through the woods looking for this kid, and they find the camera rig at the porch, and the door is a little bit open, and they go inside looking for him, and of course they can't get out, and so that's kind of the theme of Delirium.
Yeah,
and
sorry.
It's available on Blu-ray.
Oh, no, that's awesome.
Just a little plug.
I saw the scene in the trailer where I think there's one of them stood on the porch, and he turns around, he's like, I've done it, and then the ball bounces past him.
Yeah.
And that guy's...
that was a little edited. That was two different scenes. But when he gets up on the porch, he says, "Okay, I'm here. I did it." Yeah. And all of a sudden, the door kind of opens up behind him, and as he's looking back, it just sucks him right into the door.
Oh, I didn't see that part.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I just saw like a ghost-looking guy with a red bolster in his hands, like, "There's no way out," and then he's gone.
That's another earlier scene. Yeah, they kind of edited the trailer together. That was Gravitas Ventures. Who did our distribution, and they put the trailers together. And honestly, the cover for it with the woman crying with blood, that wasn't our original poster. And to this day, Johnny Martin is like, "Oh, I hate that thing. I wanted, our original poster was designed by one of the actors, where we had a bunch of the guys standing in front of the house, kind of in the shadows, and the house really is the star of the show. I mean, this thing is like, it's a character unto itself." And so we had a beautiful poster with this, the mansion in the background, fog, and then the main ghost kind of in the back, way back behind that, and large face. And it was really creepy and scary, but for whatever reason, our distributors went, "No, we're going to put this woman that's not involved in the movie at all and put her on it, and let's run some blood down her face." And apparently they thought it looked too gory with the red, so they changed it to brownish, and it looks like she's crying chocolate. So. Good job, guys.
So why did they decide to change it then?
I don't know. It's whatever the distributors demand. They kind of go, "Well, if you want us to to do this, here's the package we have. Like it or lump it." So, but we're very grateful. I mean, Gravitas Ventures has done a lot of great films, and they've put out some really good stuff. So I mean, we're grateful, because it was hard to get distribution for an independent film like that.
So you were saying that it was originally filmed and then it was changed and re-edited. When I was doing my research for it, I saw you worked on a project called Case 13, and it was about the Hell Club. And I was going to say, was that the original?
That was the original. Yeah. That was what we had the title for the found footage version. And then when they reshot it and decided to do multi-cameras and so forth, and give one of the guy who originally was the cameraman in the show had to have a bigger role, so I had to write him some more stuff. So then they changed the name, and I always kind of cringe at the name Delirium, because if you look up Delirium 2018, it's probably like 3 different films that have that title. And so I kind of wish they'd gone with something a little more original.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously with me and music and stuff, with bands of the same name, people kick off and start to take you to court and all that sort of stuff. So I didn't realize that movies could, but I suppose there's only so many words in the English language, isn't there, that you could use to...
Oh yeah, like I said, I even ran into that problem with Deadwake. I thought that was such a cool name for this. And because Deadwake is I don't know if you're familiar with boating terms, it's when a boat goes by, it's kind of the wake that follows it. And so long after the boat's gone, there's still this echo. And I thought that was a cool thing to go with, with what I'm doing with ghosts and spirits. And then after I named it there and put it out there, then I saw there was a novel that came out, and it had the same title. So it's like, well, you can't copyright a title, so oh well.
What's it like to see things you've written come to life on the screen or something?
That's just the best. That really is. I mean, the first time Johnny gave me a screener to watch at home of one of the early ones, and I'm like, look at that, there's my name on that typewriter, yeah! The opening credits of this thing are really phenomenal. He's got some really cool effects. And the way he does everybody's name is like, you see a clock and it'll say Johnny Martin, where it would say Timex or something. And it pans down to this typewriter, and there's, me and Andy's name on there. And I'm like, yay! Even that was a thrill. So, but what was really funny, when the movie premiered, they did a premiere party in Oakland because, it was filmed there, and that's where Johnny's from. And I have a friend who lives out there. So I sent him off to go. I couldn't go. And at the end of the movie, I said, so what'd you think? What'd you think? He's like, oh, I love that line. It was so funny where the guy goes, you're a shitty leader. And I'm like, oh, thank you very much. I didn't write that. It was improvised. So I'm like, I'll take the credit. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks that one.
Now, I saw there was 4 writers on this movie. So with a writer's room, I've always been intrigued how is it decided who writes what and what? How is it like all brought together?
We didn't really have a writer's room. What happened was, like I said, Andy was kind of introduced me to Johnny, and Johnny didn't know me from anybody. So he's convincing Johnny to put me on this project. So Johnny's like, well, you work with her, so she knows what she's doing, and when I'm confident she knows what she's doing, then okay, fine. So first it was just me and Andy working on it. We did the first draft, handed it in to Johnny, and then Johnny's like, well, here, Lisa, do this, change this, see what you think of that. And so I did some rewrites on the original draft, and he's like, you got it. You get what I want. All right, cool. So then Andy backed out, and that was his, contribution to it, was that first draft. Then when we went back to rewrites, back after, I think it was 2015, one of the producers wanted something different in a scene, and I wasn't available, and so he put in a couple of scenes. And so, we kind of worked, I didn't even know he had done that. All of a sudden it's like, oh, who's this guy? So, it's a collaborative field. And that's what I think a lot of writers get upset about, is when you see a new writer, they're like, you don't change my art, and that type of person's never going to work again, because, you got to collaborate, you got to work with people. And so, when even if I had a spec script, a script that I wrote completely and I handed it to a producer, it's kind of like, I like to think of it as, I'm an architect and here's my blueprint. Now, just because I gave you this blueprint, that doesn't mean you can't change that window to a bay window, or maybe you want to paint this that way. That's your prerogative. Once I hand it over, it's kind of, I walk away. It's, the producers and directors get to do whatever they want. And with Johnny Martin's writing credit, let's face it, he's the director. And if he has a better idea, he's going to add things, and he's going to take a writing credit or story credit, because that really was his story. So that's why there's so many names in it.
Nice.
So you've mentioned that you've kind of led nicely into my next question, though, which is always helpful. Cheers. As I say, you often sometimes find out what the final written project and then what you see on the screen can be different, because changes from the director, with the budget, you couldn't afford to do what you'd planned, or the actors might improvise something.
Right.
Did the final project get changed much from that final script that was handed over?
Oh yeah, because like I said, the very first script was found footage. And so, it started with this party of these guys hanging out and trying to get this guy to join this kid wanted to join their party. And in the final film, that's kind of done as the kid who is the cameraman is editing together footage from the party. And so you'll see little bits and pieces of it, but you don't see the whole scenes. And they added some scenes with children that I didn't have in. Originally, it was just these 5 guys, the house, and this ghost. And they added in some stuff with the kids. He said to me, we want to make it a little scarier. Can you do some things with, the kids are talked about in my script, my first script, but let's show them. And so we added some of that. There were some ideas that the ghost in the story should have this attraction to the guy who ended up, the original cameraman in this thing. He should have some kind of attraction to her, and maybe he, the ghost is kind of turning his mind, thus the delirium thing, to make him think that he was the original husband or something. So they kind of played with some ideas and came back to me and said, let's add this, add that, So yeah, I mean, a lot of times based on what you need. Like I said, that cameraman role had to be expanded. because now he's in front of the camera instead of always behind it. Whereas when it was found footage, every once in a while he'd say, hey, hold my camera, and get in front of the camera. Whereas now he's like a full-fledged, other character that you see a lot. So a lot of his scenes had to be expanded.
You're not allowed to have children be killed on movies, are you? Is that true? You can show them already dead.
Pardon me?
I don't know if you can show them that they're already dead, but I don't know if you could have them actually killed on screen.
I'd never heard that. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think back to some films. I know that with Cujo, they decided that they were going to have the kid in that survive, but I don't think it's a matter of rules. It's just a matter of, nobody wants to see this kid, meet the end that they did in the book. So, I mean, I've never been told that. I don't know. Other than, like I said, when Johnny Martin was telling me about the battleship one, the haunted battleship, where he's like, yeah, don't use little kids. I think it's not so much a law or anything as nobody wants to see that.
Yeah, I think it'd probably put a lot of people off, because I think I'd be a bit like, nah.
Yeah.
Zombie kids, ghost kids, fine.
Yeah, right? There are some child actors that I'd like to see, but
let's name them now. No.
Young Ricky Schroeder? No, I didn't hear that.
Yeah. So, what have you got coming up in the pipeline? So I imagine COVID's obviously put a massive stop on things.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have a backlog of screenplays, Johnny and I. One that I really like and that he's been trying to get going is we had another one that, again, back when we were still doing found footages, we've rewritten it since, but the way he pitched it to me was like this. We're going to see a camera move towards a picket fence, and you hear motorcycles, you hear all this, and then you peek over the fence and here comes a motorcade, and then you hear bang, a gunshot, and the camera goes over to this brick building, and another bang, and then also a third bang, and the camera turns the other way, and there's the shooter on the grassy knoll, and they see each other. Go from there. So I wrote this whole thing about, it's I think what do we call it? Project. Oh dear. I've written it so long ago I forgot what it was. But it's got another one's gone through a couple of titles. But yeah, basically it's about this guy who, when we had it as a found footage, it was supposed to be an experimental camera, and he said to he should, these guys could go in a close up, and he sees the shooter. They see each other, and they can hear this, that, the other. And I'm going, okay, wait a minute. 1963. There's no zoom. Super 8 cameras don't have sound. How am I going to do this? So I went, okay. There happens to be, I live in Rochester, New York, where Kodak is huge. And in 1964, there was around New York City, they were getting ready for the World's Fair. Okay, this is an experimental camera that has sound, it has zoom, and the reason this guy has this camera there's a Kodak that happens to be also in Dallas. He's getting ready for the World's Fair, and they're going to show the newest, high-tech Super 8 camera that has sound, has zoom, and so he's testing it out there, and that's how it starts off. And then he has to go hide this new camera from these guys that want to take the film and go after him because he's seen the shooter in the grassy knoll. So that's one of them that we have stored up.
I like that.
Yeah, that's one of them that we have stored up that we want to get going. Another one, let's see. Andy Cheng and I are working on one right now. It's a drama about an autistic boxer. And the cool story about this is we started this again back in 2011, back when Michael Clark Duncan was still alive. And what it was Andy had been working with him, I think, on Scorpion King. And Michael Clark Duncan was so impressed with him and said, you got to be a director. So Andy always vowed that when he became a director, he would write something for him. And so the boxer in this movie was supposed to be played by Michael Clark Duncan. And so we started working on it. And then about my first draft into it, not even all the way through it, the man passed away. And so I called up Andy, because I'm on New York time. I'd hear it before he does in California. And I'm like, oh, Andy, I'm so sorry. Your friend passed away. And he's like, what? What happened? I had to tell him. And so we shelved that for a long time. Yeah, we shelved it for a long time. And then he started working on some projects like Into the Badlands. And he met, oh gosh, what's his name? The guy who plays Pilgrim. He's a BAFTA winner. Can't think of his name at the moment. I could probably look it up on my phone, but or I can get that information to you later. Oh, Babu Sise? Is that his name? And yeah, I think it's Babu Sise. He's a BAFTA winner. I thought you guys would know this. But
not as intelligent as we look.
Oh, sorry. You're movie guys. But so he talked to him about the plot that we by then started rewriting it. And the guy's like, yeah, I want to do this movie. He's like, you got to be about 300 pounds. He's like, I'll eat. You know, he's so impressed with the idea. He's like, I'll learn to be autistic. I will gain 300 pounds for your movie. I want to do this. And so we've been trying to perfect this, and we've been going over it and over it, you know, unendingly. And we have such high hopes for this, and he really wants to get this, you know, an award-winning film. And so I can understand why it's taking this long. You know, I'll send him something, and he's a great mentor. But, you know, I kind of have this feeling sometimes with him where it's like a Hong Kong film, you know, you think, Master, I've done it. And he's like, no, whack, 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 no. You know, it's like, back to the drawing board, you know, just when I think I've got it, it's like, no, you don't understand. And like, he's really, you know, it's great to work with him. I've learned a lot. And this movie is going to be amazing when it comes out, I think. You know, it's about this guy who he works on this farm, lives with his mom. His dad has passed away, and he has these fantasies. He's autistic, and you know, Andy has a couple of nephews, and I think one of his nephews is autistic. And he used to look at him how the boy would just look into the sky, and he'd be happy and you know, making these expressions. And he said, I wonder what he's thinking about. You know, what is he seeing? And so it kind of like, what if he's seeing in our movie, this guy's 30 years old now, but he goes into this fantasy world every now and again, and he's looking up in the sky and smiling and happy. What if he's flashing back to when he remembered his dad? And he's, in his mind, he's 2 years old, so he's the same, you know, scale as his father, and you know, as when he was a toddler, I should say. And he's looking up and he's playing with his dad in his mind, and that's his heaven. And the only person who can kind of pull him out of this fantasy is his aging mom. And so he's this boxer who every once in a while, you know, they got to keep his concentration, and you know, he has that wonderful fantasy world. And more than just being a boxing movie, it's kind of about you know, a mother's love for her autistic child and what type of fears an aging mom would have for someone like that. Especially when it turns out that she's kind of the only one who can pull him out of that fantasy world that he gets into.
That sounds really good. I really hope that gets made. I'd watch the shit out of that. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
So, is there any genres you'd like to try writing in? Like, is there a comedy movie sat in your brain somewhere?
Yes, exactly, comedy. And Johnny Martin had me talk to this guy one time who was going to do a comedy movie who says it was going to be like another Rush Hour. And I interviewed with him. We talked on Skype. And he just kind of went, no, you're not experienced enough. And I went, okay, well, how do I get experience if, you know? So I think, you know, I'd like to try that. You know, I've started a couple. And it seems like every time I try to write a script for myself, a spec script, I get it going, and then somebody like Johnny or Andy or somebody that one of them get in touch with will get in touch with me and say, hey, we need you to write this instead. And so it keeps getting pushed off. But yeah, I really do want to write a comedy. I think I could do really well with one.
That'd be awesome. So where are you hoping that all of this screenwriting, all these movies and whatnot, where are you hoping this leads to? As you know, their dreams.
I would love to have this as a career. You know, It's very difficult. I mean, I've been at this for almost 10 years, and they say that's roughly how long it takes to break in. So I've got one movie in, I've got a foot in the door. So hopefully, you know, that would be the ideal. And of course, you know, with this movie that we have with the autistic boxer, that's the one that we really want to see do something for us professionally. So we have high hopes for that. You know, I don't want to jinx it, but Oscar.
I'll keep my fingers crossed for it. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, thank you. And eyes and toes and just
everything, the lot, the whole body.
Just don't bump into walls.
like you say, like you're saying, I've got one under my belt. I imagine there's people that have been doing this for longer than 10 years that don't even have one
absolutely.
yet.
For sure. A friend of my husband's is a guy who mostly reads scripts for producers. And he's been writing for 20 some odd years, and he's only breaking in now with television movies that are on some, a cable network that unfortunately a lot of people don't get. But he's also found incredible success with doing short plays. And you don't make a lot of money with that, but a lot of his plays have been done by like these small theater groups. And so he's got people all over the world doing his little one-act plays. And so he's happy with that. And he's also, starting to break in through television movies. But yeah, it's taken him like 20 years. So yeah, I'm very, very fortunate that, happenstance, I had no intention of being a screenwriter. And then Andy calls up and goes, want to try this? Yeah. So I kind of fell into it in a really good way.
That's so good. Would you ever go into like TV or anything like that?
Sure. In fact, Johnny Martin was pitching, or I think he was going to pitch a TV idea. I think someone who passed away left him a bunch of some scripts and things like that. And one of the things that he was left was an idea for a TV movie, kind of like Twilight Zone.
Okay.
And so I wrote a couple of episodes for that, and that was just before COVID hit. So I'm not sure where that's going, but hopefully that's going to do something. It's very Twilight Zone, kind of more like a revenge Twilight Zone, that this woman, it was going to focus around this woman who kind of like, if you think about Touched by an Angel, I don't know if you're familiar with that TV show. It's an American TV show where this angel goes town to town wherever she has these missions and always helps people nicely. Ours is a little different. She's going to go town to town and find people who are just assholes and horrible people and get revenge on them. So like one of the ones that we wrote was this couple of cops who are in Chinatown, and one of them is just racist as hell. This woman comes up to him and speaking Mandarin. It's like, help me, somebody just robbed my store. And he's like, oh, ching, 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 what do you want? Some really nasty. And so she comes up to him and eventually makes it so he can't understand English. All he hears is, when he speaks, other people are hearing him speak Chinese and things like that. So it's like,
that's awesome.
Like some nice revenge things.
Touched by an Angel, fucked up by a demon. I love it.
That's right. There you go.
Now, I was doing my research. This is completely off topic, but
okay.
I found out a little bit of trivia about you, and I need to have some more details about this.
Okay.
You're on David Letterman with your dog when you were 13.
Yes, I was. Well, I've like I said, I've always loved animals. I had a really clever, well-trained dog named Cal, and she was just amazing. And so we used to watch the David Letterman show, and back then he had a morning show. And they used to put an ad in the paper saying, we still want stupid pet tricks. That's when, that was his big thing, stupid pet tricks. Bring your dog on, do a stupid pet trick. And so I auditioned for it. And that was a really interesting story of how I got to New York City for that was my father was supposed to drive us there with the dog because, it's hard to take a taxi. And the damn car broke down. And we had to be there for like a 7 a.m. rehearsal. And it's like, oh my God, we're not going to make it. I'm not going to go on TV now. And so my mom gets on the phone and calls a friend of ours who bred huskies. And she's like, I can get the dog on a train if I can borrow one of your crates. So they had to rush, get the dog and get the crate. This dog had never been in a crate. So it's like, put her in the crate, put her on the train, walk her blocks through Manhattan, through a revolving door, get her on stage. She was originally supposed to do a different trick. But since, everything happened so fast, we didn't have time to be there for rehearsal. I just went with something I knew she would do, which was, the fall over and play dead. And did that. And it turned out she was the only dog that day who did the trick. The other ones, they had a guy with a bulldog or something that basically stood him on the skateboard and pushed him across the stage. That was his trick. And Melly performed. Cal performed, looked out into the audience at the end. I have a video of it somewhere.
That's awesome.
I loved it. I was just on your IMDb and it was like, Delirium, case 13, was on David Letterman when she was 13. He's like, what?
Yeah, and another interesting thing I did was when I was still writing for the magazine, I got contacted by somebody who worked for A&E, and they was like, hey, we're doing a biography show on Jet Li. Would you like to be an expert and come talk about him? I'm like, I'm not an expert. I mean, I know a little bit about him, but sure, free trip to Toronto, go talk on TV. Okay, I went and did that. So yeah, I've done that as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
So,
and one of my favorite, that you might not know about is MTV. 1983, they used to do this one night stand contest where you can go meet the band, and a friend of mine put in like 300 postcards to try and win this thing, and she won. And so yeah, I got to go on MTV and go meet Men at Work and fly off to Winnipeg, Canada.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's fun. I still have the platinum record that they gave us, and I actually still have the jacket, the MTV baseball jacket.
That's awesome. Did you get to choose the band, or was it just like, who wants to have a one-night stand with Men at Work? Wow.
Yeah, this contest was Men at Work, and we were really big fans back then, so we're like, yeah, we got to enter.
That's amazing. I love that. So we've got some fan questions, but before we move on, Tom, have you got anything else that you haven't?
Just one last thing is, did you ever think that you would be where you are today when you were younger? No? Absolutely
not. Yeah, because like I said, my whole dream was working with animals at the San Diego Zoo. And I love movies. I really do. My mom and I used to go to movies all the time. And as you know, one of our favorites was Airplane, love comedies. And and because I come from an airline family. My dad was a flight engineer for like 40 years. And so we used to fly back and forth and meet a lot of celebrities. And, I always wondered, I love movies. I love to see this behind the scenes stuff. When we used to fly out to California, one of my favorite places to go was Universal Studios, back when it was not so much, rides and stuff, but here's the back lot and here's how they make the movies. And I liked writing. I like fiction writing. And so this really combines two things I absolutely adore. I get to see what goes on behind the scenes, and I get to, write something for film. And working with Andy, a lot of times he'll send me a script, and it's something he'll be working on, like an action film. And I might help him, by plotting out some of the action points, so he can just look at this paper and see, like, I'll write the action beats in blue, the weapons in green, the characters in red. And it's so much fun. I get to read these scripts before they become films too. And so, yeah, this is just my dream come true, really. I mean, like I said, writing and movies. I love it.
Yeah, that's so cool. And you get to work with Andy and Johnny as well. So,
they're awesome. They are so awesome.
Cannot complain at all. It's absolutely wonderful.
It's like an awesome little team there, isn't it? Lisa, Andy, and Johnny taking over the world.
There we go. I mean, and I was a huge Jackie Chan fan before. And so when I was interviewing him, I was thrilled. And then when he's like, I want to work with you, I'm like, what? Me? I'm in like Podunk, New York here in this little urban or rural farm town. You want to work with me? Okay.
I'm sure I'll wake up eventually.
Yeah, seriously. I was like a bored housewife going, really? Okay.
Unbelievable scenes. So, like Jamie said, we had some fan questions come in. So from Paul Downer, he wants to know, does writing about dark subjects take a toll on your attitude to life?
No, because I'm kind of twisted that way. I kind of I really, sometimes I've got a twisted sense of humor. I'm one of these people that laughs at funerals. And my daughter raises tarantulas. It's a good thing.
What?
Yeah, I used to be afraid of of spiders in general, and so I didn't want her to be afraid of them as a child, and so I got over my fear. I've rescued them and held them in my hand and go, oh, this is okay, and this really is okay, and it backfired on me tremendously. Now she has 10 tarantulas, so. But yeah, I mean, I've always had a little twisted sense of humor, and I guess since I know how movies are made. It's all make-believe. I know, I'm more thinking, how can we make this effect happen rather than, oh, this is a horrible thing for somebody to go through. I mean, it's kind of funny. There's a meme that I saw that said something like, when I read a plot twist, it's like, oh, and then when I write one, it's like, yeah, you just want to, when I'm writing something like that, I just kind of think, oh, this is going to freak people right the F out. I love it. I'm going to scare them out. I would love to be able to sit at the front of the movie theater facing the audience when something like scary happens. I'm that kind of person.
That's awesome. I mean, I don't think I'd like 10 tarantulas in my house, to be honest with you.
They're really not bad. I mean, they're easier to care for than fish. They eat one cricket once a week. They just kind of sit there and do nothing. So.
Oh, okay, well, fair enough. I suppose if they escape, it'd be like, where's that gone?
Yeah, there's one that she just recently, since she's getting better at handling them, she got a job working at a pet store now where she has to take care of them. And so she's getting really, really good at it. And so she promised me that this one that she bought, it's an old world spider it's a cobalt blue. And she looked it up after she bought it and then went, oh, look, this is supposed to be the most dangerous tarantula you can own. I went, now you tell me. So she's promised that anytime she has to open it up to give it water or food, she's going to take it into the bathroom, put a towel under the door, that sort of thing, so it doesn't escape. Because we really just don't want it getting after the cats. It'll hurt more the cat and the dog than people. It'll give you a real bad fever, but it could kill a cat or dog. So he's like, yeah, I promise I will not handle it without it being in a secure area. Gloves and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, just hazmat suit.
Basically, that's how I'd be in there.
With the big, the rubbish pickup.
Tongs, tongs. It's like, let me feed you.
I feel like we've just written your next movie, to be fair.
Oh, yeah. Well, there was a movie called Arachnophobia. Yeah.
Oh, I remember that film. Yeah.
A couple of questions from Nick Palmer. He wants to know which director would be ideal fit for your work if you were to pick anybody.
Anybody? Oh, wow. Honestly, as a writer, I don't really worry about the director. I mean, I love working with Andy and Johnny because, we have such a good connection that, we're friends too. And so we kind of get each other, especially with like Johnny Martin. He's very happy with the way when he says, hey, I need this, this, this. And I'll like, write it off to him. He's like, that was fast. I'm like, I got it. And he's like, yeah, you do. And so, and with working with Andy, I love working with him so much because he's teaching me. He's so visual. He's gone from being a stuntman to being an action director. And so he just is visual. He's been taught by the best. I mean, Andy's been trained by Jackie Chan, who edits in camera and can do all these, visual ideas. And so I'll suggest something to him. Like, I think one of our early conversations, we were talking about writing for, I said something about, I know you're not supposed to write camera direction in a script. You shouldn't have like, tilt up or pan over. And he's like, well, it depends. I mean, he goes, what if you're writing something where a woman walks in and, there's a guy sitting at a table and he has a wine glass in front of him. I might like it if you tell me you can see the reflection of the woman coming in the wine glass and then he reacts. Or something like that, and you might have to go with some camera directions there. And I'm like, I never thought of something like that. And he's always one step ahead of me.
Yeah.
And so he'll write something, or I'll write something, and he'll go, "What if you do this? Let's do that." And I'm like, the jaw drops, and I'm like, "How did you see that? How do you see that in your mind like that?" So I'm good with dialogue, but he is amazing with just the action and the angles and how he makes me see things that I wouldn't normally see. So I love working with Andy a lot.
I suppose it also helps when you have that connection with those people. So like, you could go for like the greatest director ever, but not have that chemistry, and it just obviously wouldn't work. For sure. Yeah. So he also says, what franchise or films would you love to work on, if any?
Any Marvel films. Oh boy, I love the Marvel films. If I could work on some of those. And in fact, Andy just finished working on the new one coming out, Shang-Chi.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
The way they put those together and just the characters for it, I could have a lot of fun with some of those, especially some of the comedy elements in it, the more lighthearted. I just love that stuff.
That's awesome. What sort of movies inspire you?
Inspire me? I mean, it depends. Any kind of movie that I watch where something clever happens, where there has an interesting twist, where I'm just going, oh, why didn't I think of that? I could have done that. or how did they think of that? And on the opposite, sometimes I'll watch a film that is so bad, and I'm going, if they could get that made, oh hell, I could do better than that.
Yeah. Not naming any again.
No. Can't do that. No. But yeah, it's like sometimes I'll just, a lot of films, my husband and I will have movie night every Saturday. We go downstairs and he picks out these films, and sometimes I'm looking at them going, are you kidding me? They think that works? And they go ahead.
I suppose, does it sort of like kill movies for you now? Because obviously you write them. So if you watch ones like that, does it sort of like kill it off for you watching them? You can't really get involved?
Sometimes. I mean, the really good ones I'll get involved in. Like I was watching Run last night. It's a movie about a kid in a wheelchair and her mom, and this whole thing about, it's very Munchausen syndrome. And I was just into it. And it had a nice twist at the end, which, wasn't too terribly predictable. And so it's like, yeah, sometimes I'll really, if it's really good, I'll get into it and just not even think about it. What gets me sometimes more is, since I know Andy and a lot of the guys he hangs out with and works with, the stunt guys, if I'm watching an action film and all of a sudden there's a familiar face on there, it's like, oh, look, there he is. Then it's like, oh, there it goes. Like, oh, look, there's John.
What's he doing there?
Yeah, I didn't know he was in this. Cool.
Finally, he says, who do you admire that works in horror films?
Ooh,
If
that
anybody
one's tough. I mean, I don't really think that way. I mean, I'm like I said, I've watched a few horror films, and a lot of people, just because I've got this one film out, that they think I'm into the horror genre, and I enjoy them, but I don't really, get
let's
back
go.
into
Let's go as a whole then. Let's go as a whole. Yeah.
Wes Craven, is it? What's his name? The one who did Nightmare on Elm Street.
Wes Craven, yeah.
Yeah, Wes Craven. He's good. I like a lot of his films.
Oh, fantastic. That's all I had.
Wonderful. Now, before we get out of here, we like to play a little game with our guests.
Uh-oh.
It's called the quick fire round. We ask you 6 questions, and you just got to answer them as quick as you can. It's
okay.
Nice and simple. So, first question. Favourite cheese?
Oh, Swiss.
Oh, I like how quick that was answered. Favourite horror movie icon?
Freddy.
Who would play you in a movie?
Well, when I was younger, I was told that Brooke Shields looked a little bit like her, so maybe Brooke Shields.
That works.
We're about the same age.
Favourite concert you've ever been to?
Muse.
So good live. And we've
I saw them in Toronto. They were awesome.
If you could go anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
I'd love to go to Hong Kong. I've never been, and because Andy's told me so much about it, I think I'd love to go see Hong Kong and even like China, the Great Wall of China. That's on my to-do list. I've been to the UK, I've been to Canada and to Mexico, but I've never been to Asia.
Awesome.
And the final question. This all depends. The answer to this question depends on if we even decide to release this episode. Does pineapple belong on a pizza?
No.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely not. Hey, my maiden name was Pondicio. What do you think?
Yeah, good. So you already know.
Yep.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Why anyone wants to put fruit on a pizza, I never understand.
Never.
This episode
I don't
gets
even
released
like
well
anchovies, honestly. Yeah, I'm not a big anchovy eater either.
What?
Sorry.
Why?
I don't like little salty fish. I like margarita pizza. I like basil, mozzarella cheese. Maybe at most tomato and onions, but I'm not big on fruit or fish.
That's fair enough. I don't know why I reacted so. I do apologise. It's quite a vicious reaction, wasn't it? Forgive me, Lisa.
That's fine. That's fine.
Mate, Lisa, you've been incredible. Please, before we get out of here, plug any social medias, anywhere people can get hold of you or whatnot.
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. lclem71304 on Twitter, I think, and Sluglines possibly on Facebook, I think.
Wonderful.
Amazing.
Lisa, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
Anytime. It's been fun.
Thank you very much. You take care.
Thank you very
Have
much.
a great day.
Have a good one. Have a
See
good
you
night.
later.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Find all this great content and more at the USUK Podcast Network.